All right, man. Here we go. Before we kick into the show's programming for today, did you work out? Are you going to work out?
Today I have not worked out. Last workout I did was a little workout that was slid to me by a buddy, and the original was 14 minutes, as many rounds as you can, 500-meter C2 bike, 50 double unders, 5 wall ball, and every round that you complete, you add 5 to the wall ball. But my garage is a mess right now, and I didn't have room and didn't want to make room to do double unders, so I did 10 burpees instead,
Oh,
and
good
uh,
grief.
and it got the job done. So
Yeah,
that
I
was
would say
yeah.
so. I've got a 9 rounder, but the reps per round are very small. You like to keep it going. Can't remember the exact things off the top of my head, but I got to send it your way because it was like one of those fun sleeper ones. That's probably something I should have said off camera. It's irrelevant to anybody. Maybe I'll tell everybody later on if I remember what it is. But it caught me off guard. But
Yeah.
today's death by calories on the rower,
Ooh, okay.
um, which I might do, but I might choose one of the other options honestly, just because I prefer it and want to do
Mm.
something fun. I'm one of those weird people. Like I like death by 10-meter shuttle sprints, and I might do that. It's
Yeah,
lose lose. Either way is lose lose.
I will say that I guess it's not recently anymore, but in the middle of this year, myself and a group of people did a true deal beep test, like a legit look it up online.
Okay,
They have a whole protocol, they have a recording that gradually increases the pace, and it was a blast. I'm not going to lie, it was a lot of fun. So,
nice.
highly recommend the beep test if you need something a little different
Oh,
but still in the same vein.
okay, very cool. We'll
Yeah.
get into today's topic, but first of all, stuff I got to do. So, of course, we appreciate you, everybody. Check out variednotrandom.com. The cycles that we offer, tons of on ramp, getting started in body weight, dumbbells, barbell. Then, if you've been working out for a bit, there's capacity programs for all the major lifts, running programs. And then, if you're looking to get some skills you don't have, how to get your first strict pull up, bar muscle up, ring dip, handstand push up, toes bar, all kinds of cool stuff. So, check that out. And then, if you're a gym owner, any kind of gym, go to btwb.com and look at their all in one. They've got one-stop shop for workout tracking, gym management, and billing, all the stuff that your gym needs. So check that out. So today's question came from the recent show that we did with Jerry Pritchett. And in the comments, somebody posted, "Hey gents, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to incorporate learning gymnastic skills into a program. I'd like to learn how to do a forwards and backwards rolls on the ring and a press to handstand on parallettes. Between specific warm-ups and the focus of practicing these skills, it seems like they require a dedicated session to train well. Trying to practice new skills as part of a warm-up before a Metcon is time-consuming, and doing it after a workout is too tiring. Weightlifting has its own, heavy day, so it seems fair that a gymnastics should maybe get its own dedicated time or day as well." And there we have it, sir.
Oh man, I love it. I love this topic. I told you before we turned the camera on,
I know.
I felt a bit of a rant incoming as well. So we'll see
I
if we
hope
can
so. I
we'll
hope
see,
so.
we'll see if we can arrive there organically. If not, I mean, nobody likes a forced rant. You know what I mean? So we'll see. But right out the gate, I have to disagree with the assumption that is built into this question. I think that there is a ton of utility to practicing gymnastics movements as part of your warm up and your cool down. Honestly, I think in most cases, it is a great way to go because it's more important for a lot of these skills, particularly those that require more technique and less of a strength component. It's more important that you see them somewhat frequently than you spend a ton of time per session. I would way rather encourage somebody who's, for example, trying to learn a freestanding handstand to invest 5 minutes a day, 4 or 5 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
than 25 minutes in a single session and you don't see it again for another 10 days. That will
Mm-hmm.
always accelerate your process when we're talking about something relatively technical. Now, if we have something that's really strength oriented, like you're trying to do an iron cross or something like that, yeah, you might need to approach that the same way that you see a heavy day. in that it's going to take some sets and reps in a real dedicated fashion, and you're going to have to rest accordingly, just like a heavy day. So if that's the type of gymnastic skill that we're talking about, okay, maybe it's a bit of a different story. However, I think that you can absolutely make a huge headway with that warm up and cool down approach. So that's my right out the gate kind of knee jerk reaction. And that was not my rant. I got way more. So.
That's okay. This won't shock anybody who's been listening. I think this is going to be like show 190 or something like that. So if somebody's been listening from the beginning, I do agree with frequent touches. Like, I don't think you need, hey, I can't find an hour.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, I do think small touches on a frequent basis really do meaningfully move the needle if you're just dedicated and you keep showing up and giving that 5 to 10 minutes, and you have some sort of a system or progression or something that you're following. I would say potentially, well, what's funny is, so I took this question before we got on. This could be another potential rant, but my wife's not on camera, but she probably would have ranted about this. So I was like, hey, I got my
former gymnast, right?
Right. Well, that's why I was like, hey, I got my thoughts on this, but here's a question that Boz and I are going to tackle today. I'm like, what do you think about this? And there was this like, there was like this exhale from her lungs. And yes, former D1 gymnast, full ride scholarship, the whole 9 yards. And she was like, man, she was like, look, I know you see some people on Instagram doing this stuff. She's like, as a former gymnast, I don't think people actually understand how difficult most of this stuff is. If somebody just casually says, I'd love to get a press to handstand on the parallels. Yeah. She's like, yes. Hours and hours and hours and years of like repetitive strength building and technique to get there. Like, it's not like I'm going to just kind of whiz bang, throw this in a couple times. I should get there. She's like, you might, but there's a really good chance that you won't. There's a really good chance, especially if you're starting it at 41. It's just, it just depends, and also depends upon how you're built, which is why a lot of gymnasts are built the way that they're built, and they're not built like powerlifters or something like that. And she also just said, as she just blew off the question and walked away, and she was like, if somebody wants to do that too, they should effortlessly, sets of strict handstand push-ups should be an effortless thing that you don't have to worry about. Walking your hands should be an effortless thing that you don't need to worry about. Strict toes to bar, you don't need to worry about. Like, you've got these basic foundational things, then I'm going to potentially try to put them together somewhere else. But if you don't have all of those other gymnastics moves, which aren't sexy or aren't flashy or aren't whatever, and are really easy to blow off and don't get worked frequently because they'll slow down your quote unquote for time workout. Who's going to do strict toes to bar in a 21:59 or strict chest to bar pull-ups or strict whatever? Like, nobody wants to do a strict JT. That's going to be way slower than doing the whatever. And so most of them get blown off, and that really not sexy foundational core bottom of the pyramid strict gymnastics midline strength isn't there. And if it's not there, that I would say would be a great place to focus on first before heading down this road.
100% agree. And I think a couple things in there to really highlight. Yeah, gymnastic skills are notoriously glacially slow to develop. Right. Just like flexibility. If you're not somebody who's naturally flexibility, it takes a long time. And it's not something that you're going to be motivated by that progress, because oftentimes you don't notice it for weeks and months and sometimes even longer. Contrast that to something like a strength program where, you have an adjustable barbell, you can see a couple pounds added here or there, or a couple more reps that you could do where you couldn't before. It's easier to measure and be motivated by that progress. And that is not the case with most gymnastic style progressions. So you have to be comfortable with that at the outset. And second, man, I could not echo that strongly enough, that most people feel that these skills, or at least they approach them as if they exist in a vacuum. Hey, I want to learn how to do the iron cross, but you're still struggling with a strict muscle up. It's like, good luck. You've got some work to do foundationally before you even start thinking about some of these other elements. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with that statement, that some of those foundational elements just get totally, if not neglected, just disregarded after a certain level of like, I check the box, I don't need to develop that any further.
Well, what's funny is just seeing, like, I'm starting to see actually like the time and effort, because, shocking, I was not a former gymnast. So I've got, our youngest child is 3.5, and she has been attending gymnastics now for about a year. I think we started her when she was 2.5 years old. And, I've watched what her class does, how they spend their 45 minutes to an hour on these basic skills. There's some bar work where they're hanging on bars and they're already like getting their toes to touch the bar. And you're working this like donkey kick to get into a handstand, and you're walking on the balance beam and you're bear crawling here. Like there's all these like foundational skills, and you're going to do like what they call a bird pose on the beam, and like one leg's gonna go to the side, like all this stuff. And then the gym's huge. This gymnastics gym is massive. And then I look, she's 2.5, she's 3.5 now. Then I look to the next group of like 4 to 6 year olds. They're literally doing the exact same things as my daughter, but better, more refined, with more virtuosity. Maybe the kicking into the handstand or what, but like you can see that it's the same. And then you look at the 7 to 8 year olds and 9 year olds, they're literally doing the same stuff. You look at it, they're like, so they've been building this base of like body awareness, control, like midline strength, like for honestly a decade of such repetitive boringness that most people would quit. And then you get to somebody down the road who's like, so-and-so is a former gymnast. Like that just sounds like an easy thing to do, but they have like 15 years of stripped toes to bar and 15 years. And dude, it's crazy. I'm on such a total tangent now. This gym is huge. The ceiling is definitely north of 20 feet high. It's and they've got, just manila ropes hanging. And there are, young gymnasts that are, let's say, like 10 or 11 years old. And I watch them with their legs in a perfect L-sit climb this 25-foot rope hand over hand with just upper body strength at like 10 years old. They got a crash pad, but they climb like, dude, they're like 2.5 stories into the air. Like, and then they break back down. No shoes, no, like, nothing to prevent burn of the rope. They don't care. They go back down. I'm like, man, this is the world these people are growing up in. Like, and just things that, if you're trying to get into this world as an adult, just realize that you might have success, and I wish you well. And pursuing complicated things, again, if you listen to this show, there's huge benefit even if you never get a press to handstand, but you exert yourself and modify things and use these bands so you are operating at the limits of your capacity and firing up things that you didn't know your central nervous system could do. There's going to be benefit there, but realize that base that I've seen, taking my daughter to gymnastics for a year now, like, that's an amazing base. It's tough you just can't recreate that at 37 when you're like, I think I'm going to try so-and-so. So mild rant there.
Man, you took the words right out of my mouth about this concept of, I guess it really kind of falls down in my mind to, do you believe there is utility in the pursuit? Yes. Or is it strictly about, I can do this thing and that's the outcome that is important? If it's the latter and all that really matters to you is the outcome, I kind of question why you're doing it in the first place. Because if we're looking at it through a GPP lens, being able to pull off a party trick now and then, it's great and it's awesome and it reflects a lot of work. There's nothing wrong with any of that. However, the real utility is exactly what you just mentioned. I pushed myself beyond what I was capable of prior. And in doing so, it stretched my coordination. It stretched my ability to move my body into certain positions. It stretched my understanding of my body in space. There's all these benefits that do have carryover elsewhere, even if you never get to a refined 100%. Final product. And that, I think, is the real important distinction when it comes to mentality. So if you're somebody who's really interested in fitness, as defined by CrossFit, as this big, broad skill that you can draw on and lend itself to all these other applications in your life, the pursuit alone has value. And you hopefully I don't have to convince you of that, and it's something that you see and have experienced. But you've got to ask yourself sometimes, like, why am I pursuing this thing? And if it's just for the party trick element, hey, that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we all have to have hobbies, But let's just keep that framing in mind as we're moving forward. And I mean, if you'll grant me, Pat, this kind of lends itself to my rant that I had.
Please do.
And this comes down to this whole idea of like functional, right? And I hear this get batted around a lot when people talk about like, well, why would I want to learn to walk on my hands? That's not functional because I'm never going to have to be upside down in the real world. Fair enough. That might be true. But the point of being able to walk on your hands is not that I can do it or do it better than the person next to me. It's the fact that I have a surplus of body control, coordination, positional stability, flexibility, etc., that doing that is no big deal. All the things that come behind that as more rudimentary are just not a problem at that point. That is what that is expressing. For the same reason that, hey, snatching 225
Absolutely.
is nothing particularly functional if you're taking it as a literalist. However, the fact that you can snatch 225 suggests, you know what? I don't think you're in any danger of getting up off the toilet with a struggle anytime soon. So that's a big one. And I'll also say that when you're taking a reductivist approach to something like being functional, you can see anything that you do in the gym other than something as bare bones as like standing up and sitting down. If it's not exactly mimicking that motor pattern, it's a divergence in that worldview. And I think that's kind of a crazy way to look at things. Functionality has nothing to do with one-to-one analog between what you're doing in the gym and what you're expected to do in the real world, and everything to do with how can I take these movements in the gym and expand that functional capacity so the basics aren't ever a question for me. And so anyway, long-winded way of saying that the pursuit is important, and pursuing some of these things that are quote unquote never going to happen in the real world, fine, that may be true. They still have utility. They are still functional for that reason because they expand on that baseline. And that's the real big deal. That's the needle moving.
No, I think that's just pure truth right there. You know, the journey, again, if you never get to a press to handstand, but you dedicated yourself to it for a year, you're going to be a stronger human in 1 year. Like there's just no way around it. Like, and in ways that you don't seem obvious at the moment. You know, I am a believer that variance and doing things like that helps many other things in ways that don't make logical sense. So I'm a big believer in that. And I would also say personally, on like the programming side of the house, for any programming nerds out there, you know, like I said previously, like building that base of strength work, and maybe that doesn't get programmed as frequently as other things because it's going to be a slower workout, or et cetera, et cetera. That's cool. I have a bit of a different mindset to that. You know, there's going to be plenty of days that we burn it down, but taking something like pull-ups, for example, if over the course of a week, I'm gonna, for Linchpin, put in a couple upper body pulling days. Generally speaking, it's not uncommon for me to put in one of those days like a kipping variation of something, and the other one is going to be a strict variation of something, knowing full that strict is going to be a slower thing. But who cares? Whatever. We're looking to develop the athlete. I don't care that your heavy day's slow. Like we're doing 5x5 back squat because it's going to be beneficial in the long run to what we're doing. We're going to work our strict pull-ups or whatever it happens to be, not for what's going to happen today on the leaderboard, but because we're planting these seeds that will flourish down the road. But if you never plant the darn seeds, like, you know, you could have had this, you know, whatever it is, 10 years down the road, but you didn't put in that work back then. So I would say if you're programming for your gym, if you're whatever, like, depending upon the community that you have there, like educate them as to why they're doing these things. And maybe today, like, we're not going to worry about the clock so much today. We know this is going to be a slower deal. I specifically made it strict. I know you're going to have to take big breaks because strict JT is probably going to be like 3 times as long as your regular JT, but it's an entirely different workout. But there's benefit for these reasons. And strict could be strict chin over bar, strict chest to bar, legless rope climbs, right? You know, L-sit rope climbs, whatever those things are, I would work them in. Strict handstand push-ups, strict knees to elbows, strict toes to bar. Put them in every now and then. Put in their kipping varieties, and I think everyone's going to be better for it. And I had something else that would just. Oh, you could do it in a bunch of different ways, right? I might do it in a regular workout and just give people the option, say for time or not, and just let them know why that is. Like, if the clock does bother you, then make it a not for time day and just do the workout as quick as you can, but it's strict. you can also program strict work in a way that will still allow the athlete to like feel that burn and that intensity that they love to do it, but you may have to play with the order. Like for example, I can't remember it exactly, but I was just working out a block and I've got some intervals that are going to be coming up sometime in the future. 3 or 4 intervals, I think 3, and each one starts with 15 strict pull-ups. Okay, which for a lot of people is a really tall order. That's a big set of strict pull-ups for a lot of people. So they're gonna get broken up, you know. Now if I ended the interval with that, it'd be like a buzzkill. Wah, wah, wah. But if I put it first, and then let's say there's 3 different parts of that interval, starts with 15 strict pull-ups, then you're going to do something else, and then you're ending with 20 cals on the bike. Like, you know, the other 2 movements aren't movements that are going to slow you down with this muscular fatigue, you know, like you just reached a point that you have to rest. I started with that, so get through it, and then whether it takes you 1 set to get through it, 3 sets of 5, 6, 5, 4, whatever it is, as long as once you finish that set of 15 pull-ups, then you attack the other 2 movements as if the devil is chasing you, you will get everything that you were supposed to get out of that interval day. And I also sneakily made you work on your strict work as well, you know. And so there are ways that you can do it to drive the strength and conditioning of your population forward and have them feel some intensity and burn, and maybe, you know, trick them into working these things which are easy to avoid. So I would just put that into the back of their heads.
Yeah, for sure. I'll offer another avenue on that too, which I think is probably the most overlooked aspect of gymnastics training in the CrossFit context, and that is just the basic drills that start to develop more body awareness. We're not talking about anything strength oriented or really difficult to do from that perspective, but I'm talking about a really clean forward roll, a really clean backward roll, a really clean cartwheel, being able to stand on one leg and move your body through various positions with beautiful lines. You know, these types of things, they're not sexy. They don't make you feel good on Instagram. They're not particularly taxing, to be perfectly honest. And so I think a lot of people don't value them for that reason. But again, if we're looking at the chief characteristic of what gymnastics as a modality has to offer, a big part of that is body awareness. How well can I navigate through physical space? And maybe it's just because I'm getting older now too. I think that becomes way more of a premium, a little more as you become a little bit more advanced in age, and you are no longer confronted with opportunities to either express that or refine it. So I would really encourage people to explore some of those basics a little bit more. And those types of things, like I said, they're not particularly taxing. And to your point earlier, man,
the front
you can
scale,
take
the back scale.
You can take those types of things from, you know, year 1, it's pretty ratty, but you can do it, to a year or 2 from now, you can do that skill and it's clean and effortless and it looks great. There's nothing really magical about it. You've just refined it to the point now where, hey, your body awareness is a lot sharper than it was prior. So I would encourage people to mess around with things like that. Front roll, back roll, cartwheels, candlestick, scales of all types, you know, and it doesn't need to be this intensive thing that you're doing every day, but sprinkle them in. They're great. And there's lots to be gained there.
100%. The question here, I don't have it. I can't see on this thing here. I want to give a shout out to the person who did it. So stand by. I'm going onto my phone here, going into YouTube, and now this was the interview with Jerry. Here it is. Okay. All right. Who asked this question? Oh, Tori Callan 3992. So Tori Callan 3992. Here's what I want to say to you, sir or madam, which I'm not sure.
Speaking direct to the source now. Wow. Okay. That's great. It's got really official.
Yes. Okay. Don't take our rants personally. Like we're not ranting at you.
Correct.
Like your question is a great question, and it just sparked some passionate thoughts on the subject in general. Your particular desire to learn gymnastic skills, quite frankly, is awesome. Like in a world of barbell obsession, where it's just about the back squat, and you're like, I would love to learn to press to handstand. you are a hero. So keep doing that, and it's awesome. So.
And don't get discouraged along the way, because it does take a long time. That skill in particular, it's going to feel like 2 steps forward and 1.5 steps backwards for a long time until you get that one kind of taste of success. So stick with it. Don't get discouraged.
100%. All right. Well, I'm going to go do death by 10-meter shuttle sprints.
Dude, enjoy.
Unless you have anything else on the topic.
No, I think I got it all out today, Pat. So thank you. I appreciate
it. No problem at all. Well, as always, we appreciate you, everybody. Go to the btwb YouTube channel, find the show, post your thoughts on this topic. If you've got some cool progressions, post them. Maybe they will help this individual as well. If you've got ideas for a future show, post those as well. We read all those. If you want to be a bit more anonymous, you can go to the Very Not Random Instagram page, and you can either post a live direct comment there or send a direct message, and then it'll be more anonymous. So, but either way, all that stuff makes its way to us. Thanks everybody. For Adrian Boz,